I thought you would tell me. Yeah, we are live. We are live. Good afternoon. My name is Nomsa Clara Mngbe. I'm the founder of Hope Spring Eternally Introduction Agency and the founder of Ngosi Talk Shows. So sorry for today, technical problems. And with me today, I'm here with Carol Ann. Over to you, Carol Ann. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello and good afternoon from London, UK. And my name is Carol Ann. And as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing by connecting them with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within. So good afternoon. And I look forward to this conversation.
So our conversation today is, could the marriage gap year save your relationship? Basically, both men and women, they sometimes women say and men, they are satisfied in their marriage when their spouse were younger, and the research shows that. And though couples with an age gap started out more satisfied, however, as the time goes, that satisfaction intended to drop dramatically over time. But for me, I believe that every couple is different. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends with your marriage, with how you work with your marriage. So I'm gonna give over to you, Carol Ann, and to hear what you think, because you chose this topic.
Yeah, and interesting, because I think there's a confusion here with what I was saying when I put this up there, because I'm not talking about the age gap of the couples. I'm talking about taking a gap year out from your marriage. So like a student would take a gap year out of college, where it's a year where they can find themselves, discover what it is they want for themselves and who they are, and then come back again with a clearer idea. So that was actually the idea behind the topic, that, as I put it down. So could a marriage gap year save your relationship, was what I was actually talking about. So it's interesting where this came.
Let's talk about the gap year. Let's talk about the gap year. I'm interested with the gap year. So, for me, basically, when I was talking about, you gave me a topic, I thought it was the age gap. Basically, I misunderstood. I thought it was the age gap. So I'm really, really interested with the gap year, like a university. Let's take a break, baby. Go on.
And I think this is beautiful, because sometimes this is what underpins sometimes the problems within a marriage is communication and miscommunication, and someone will say something and it's completely taken in a different way. And if you can't discuss it in a reasonable way and sort of say, well, no, actually, this is what I was talking about, without making the other person wrong, it's okay that someone's gone off on a tangent about it. This is where sometimes relationships can fall down, because then it gets into an argument and, oh, you never understand me. And, and that's not what I was talking about. Not to go in a bit of a rant, and that doesn't help. So it's interesting, to just, when I saw this, I was thinking, oh, my first reaction about a marriage gap year, because it's a phrase I hadn't heard of before. And I just thought, oh, my initial reaction was, well, oh my God, no. How can a marriage gap year, how can it take a year off from your marriage? How could that really help? Because in me, there's that fear of, well, it could all just fall to pieces. It would never come back together again. You know, you go off and find somebody else. So I think if that's the case, then there's something maybe else to look into within yourself, because there has to be some communication. It has to be a mutual agreement to do this, with a realization that you both want the year, or you set the time, but possibly no longer than a year, you know, 3 months, 6 months, a year. But within that, you agree that you're going to use it as a gap year is intended, to work on yourself, to find yourself, to work out, well, what is it that you want? Because sometimes after you've been married for, you know, quite a few years, you can actually lose yourself. And you've both, you know, I think grown up, but you've moved on from where you were when you first got married. So sometimes what you wanted can get squashed, forgotten. You lose your own identity within a marriage. And so maybe that is a great time to find out more about yourself and what it is you want. But I think you need to set some boundaries or set some rules, you know, before you go into it, and see where it goes from there. But yeah, so what are you hearing within this then, Hamza? What's your initial reaction?
For me, my reaction is actually different. Basically, for me as a Christian, basically, if you enter a marriage, it says basically for better and for worse. If you lose yourself in that marriage, you have to, for me personally, I would suggest that when you say we take a gap year, the day you signed that certificate, you signed that for better, for worse. So you are signing that whenever there is a problem, you're going to work it out together, and you're going to get counseling together if worse comes to worse. You don't just get out, because what happens is it becomes a habit when somebody knows that actually I can get out of this and go and take a break. Then it becomes a habit in that marriage. I'm talking about, because we have to talk about the real people like us. We are coaches. And when you talk about the real people that have never done personal development, and when they hear about gap year, it will work for somebody that is actually ready to save their marriage. But for people that are just fighting and think, oh, I can take a gap year and then we're going to come back. Sometimes, you know, like when people get married, the reason why people lose themselves, their lives, it becomes all about marriage. It becomes all about the children. It becomes all about the husband. They reject themselves. So you have to find ways to spend time with yourself, to spend time with girlfriends, to spend time doing things that you love away from the marriage, and for you to be able to actually keep that real self within. Without you, Carol Anna, you always talk about making yourself, don't make yourself wrong. For me, I mean, when I'm doing things, I still have to find things for myself. If I'm in a relationship, I still have to find a life of my own away from my spouse. In that way, the relationship will keep going. Relationship is not easy. And even during coronavirus, I've learned something, that marriage is a battle. Marriages can be tested in so many ways. It's a battle, and you have to have a completely a different mindset. You have to, the day you get married, you have to have a coach about marriage. You have to buy books about mindset. You have to buy books about marriage, read books, habit about marriage. What is marriage about? You have to have some basic understanding about a little bit about marriage. Because if you are somebody that is going to get married, get a good house, a beautiful house, a nice car, beautiful children, it's not going to work.
I totally get what you're saying. And that sounds like an absolutely great idea. And it's something that I wish I'd known when I first got married, because I had no idea what marriage was all about, really. It's like you end up making it up as you go along. And if you had something more, or someone that could support you in sort of discussing things or working things through, because just going to talk with friends, what you end up doing is chewing over what's not going right. And I know I got to a point where it's like, actually, this isn't helping. I need to actually talk to my husband, but I wasn't able to really talk about the deeper things that needed to be talked about. It's like we skimmed across the surface, and we didn't really know ourselves. But yes, we did change. We weren't the same people 10 years, 20 years later that when we first got married. Lots of different experiences, jobs, and the way what life had sort of impacted us in different ways. But I heard what you said about for better or for worse, and that was something that always stuck with me in terms with my marriage. And it really felt, it was hard when I did make that decision, no, we would separate and then divorce, because there was always that in my head, what it said, for better or for worse. Can we not find a way out or a way through it? But somehow we couldn't seem to find a way through it. And I think what you're saying about if it becomes a habit where you think, oh, we can have a gap year or we can have time out, then that's a warning signal, because that is not what having a gap year is about. It's not creating a habit of, oh, right, we're having problems, let's have time out. The whole idea is it's something just that maybe you just do the once, just to see what you can work out between yourselves, you know? And I think underlying all of that has to be a want to sort things out, a want to really be together. Because if there's something there that doesn't have you want to be together, it's going to fall apart anyway. And I did read one, someone has written about, they did take a gap year and it was the best thing they did. But what she realized at the end of it was that she, it gave her time to discover herself and what she wanted. But she also then realized that what she wanted was the other person's company, because they brought something to the relationship and to her life that no one else could. And she'd got to that point of realizing that, you know, and it wasn't that she was dependent or codependent on him. There was something that he brought to her life. And so their marriage then just grew from there. But they did both work on themselves. And I think that's the key thing, is you both have to work on yourselves, but you also need to be in communication and maybe have regular check-ins, you know, and have this, a talk or something, so that it's not just, right, you go that way, I'll go that way, bye-bye, you know, I've got a year out. You still need to check in somehow, I think, along the way. But I think you have to make it work for yourselves. You set the ground rules. And I think one of the main things is that you both agree not to go and see a lawyer in that time to discuss anything that a lawyer would want to discuss, you know, because that's not what it's about. That's outside of the parameters of what I believe a marriage gap year is about. So I think it could be a healthy option, because you are attempting to find a way through, for better or for worse. And I think that's the main thing, is that you're attempting to find a way forward. And if that is the way forward, then yeah, why not? There has to be the ground rules, and it has to be for what a gap year is about. Discovering, who you are. Because I certainly didn't know. When I actually went into my marriage, I didn't really know who I was. I just knew I wanted to teach. I wanted to get married. I wanted someone with whom to have children. Beyond that, I had no idea. So it would have been really great to have been able to maybe explore, well, what is marriage about? And have a coach or a mentor, a marriage mentor, to sort of say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Someone who can also, it's about also working with your emotions and being allowed to feel your emotions, understand your emotions, and to be able to discuss them and what's going on for you, and know that you've both got something to bring to the marriage.
I actually agree, Carol Ann, when you say this person, they took a gap year, and then they basically realize the other person, what the other person brought to the marriage. Because what happens is basically she was being grateful for that person being part of her life or being part of his life. What happened is when we get married, we enter a relationship, or even when we are not married, once it's okay when you go on the website, the dating website, we are writing our want, we are writing our desires, we are saying, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to be. And we don't think about what am I going to do with this person that I'm looking for. And then what happens is once that person, God says, here is the man or the woman that you've been searching for, we believe that our hard work of being grateful is gone. We are done. We start saying, you did this, you did that, you did that, you did this. We focus on the blame, He's not doing this, she's not doing this. So what happened is this person took a gap year. They worked on themselves. And then after they started becoming grateful, looking at the things that the person brought into the relationship, and the other person who have not brought those kind of things that the other spouse have brought to that relationship. So she might have dated people before, or have a relationship, simply relationships with her family or his family, and the family have never treated the same way like this person is treating them. And they're like, actually, I have to be grateful for this person, that I was with this person for many years, and now I didn't realize this is what they brought into our relationship. And which is, for me, it is my awareness that I have started to actually realizing when I meditate and asking God to show me who I am, the secret about my life. And I started being grateful because I realize the importance of the other person that are being in my life. And I start realizing I'm not with the father of my hope, my first daughter. And I'm becoming grateful. Like every time when we started having an argument, and I started being grateful of what the part that he's playing in my daughter's life, and not financially, he's present, what he's doing with my daughter. I start becoming grateful. But before, when he does something, I'll react to it. But since I started personal development and meditation, I am actually aware of the things that I wouldn't be able to do it without him. And I am actually aware of my relationship now, the other person, what they are bringing into my relationship, that I'm grateful of. But before, I don't think I had that awareness, which is this person basically is teaching us to be alert of what is going on in our lives. Because if you don't know what is going on in your lives, what the other person is bringing into the relationship, it can end up a gap year or divorce. There are some people who have divorced. If you listen to their story, you'll be like, it's big to them, it's big, but you'll be like, God, I wish you have showed this person that their problems would have been sorted out, they would have been solved. But because we focus on what I'm going through, not what the other person is going through as well. Because when you are going through pain, that means that the other person is going through pain. And the relationship, it becomes, both of you becomes lonely. But you're saying both of you are in a relationship, but you're lonely.
That's very easy to get, actually, is feel lonely and be lonely in a relationship. You can have people around you and feel very lonely, but as you say, in that relationship, it's because like you've drifted apart. There is that connection has gone, and the communication has gone. What if it was ever really there? And it always comes down to communication and being able to express yourself. It's about feeling confident enough to stand up and speak up, and for both parties to listen to what is being said and recognize when you go into your own child state of reaction. And I think that's where it is, because we don't understand when we're going into child parent mode, or we're both in child mode, it's and so being able to be adult to adult is a very difficult place to get to, because you have the inner child constantly pulling at you and reacting, and actually doing the inner work helps you to work with the inner child and to heal that inner child, such that the inner child is not ruling the roost. And so as I say, it always comes down to communication. It's communication, and it's listening. Are we really listening for what is going on for the other person? Are we listening to what is going on for ourselves? Because maybe there's a fear going on inside of you about what the other person's going to say. Or can I deal with this? What am I meant to say? Or, or how can I deal with this? Or their reaction to it. It's like, oh, I can't deal with this. So again, it's being able to work with that and deal with that. Recognize how you are, and recognize you have a right to speak up, but there's a ways of speaking up. And I know a couple where both would shout at each other, and I could see that the mirror going on, and it's like they were both fighting for survival, because they would really literally having a go at each other, and the other one would go back again. And it's not a healthy relationship. And so it's really recognizing the reflections that are going on as well, which again is another very skillful tool to be able to have and to be able to do, as hard as it can be, to sort of go, oh, was that reflection, what part of me responds or reacts in that way, and working with that, because very often you go, oh no, there's no way, that's not me, I don't do that. But if you sit with that and work with it and acknowledge it, and then heal it, you can then come to that place of gratitude. As you were saying, so gratitude is that great healer. And you can then be grateful for the other person in your life for showing you what was there to be, the lesson to be learned and what was to be healed. And then that relationship does shift because there's nothing there to reflect again in that same way. So there's all these complex things going on that we step into marriage that we've got no idea about. So I think, yeah, that there's certainly something to be said for marriage training. Yes. Marriage mentorship, marriage coach, but certainly marriage training. And it's not about expectation. It should be this way or it should be that way. It's understanding who you both are, what you bring to it, and about gratitude and really getting to know yourselves. And as I said, communication and listening, but I think also it's recognizing that sometimes you have expectations of the other person. You've got this image of them or an expectation. They should be like this. Some people, some women I know, I used to compare my ex-husband to my dad a lot. Well, my dad used to do, he was really great with his hands and did a lot of DIY around the house and woodwork and things. And it's like, my husband wasn't that way. And it took me a long while to realize and let go of that and to accept him for who he was and the fact that he didn't have that same capability, but he could learn and he could find a way of sorting things, and there were ways we could work together. If we got furniture, it comes flat packed. And I was always one for reading the instructions. He was one that would just, let me put it together, and then wonder why it didn't quite go right. And we used to have a few arguments in the beginning, but then we just settled into we worked together. I'd read the instructions, and we'd work, and it would, we'd get the unit built in a peaceful way, in a collaborative way, in a way that accepted how each of us worked, but we had a common goal. We wanted that unit to be built, to be put together. And I think that's what marriage is. It's something that you're building together for a lifetime. And what are the component parts? There's no instruction book. But I think there are some key things could be part of it, maybe a rule book. But I don't like the word rule. So what do you think? What could we call it, Nomsa? What would be?
Principles.
Principles?
Yeah.
Guiding principles.
Yeah, I call it principles, but now I'm gonna call it guiding principles, because if you make it a rule, then it will sound like a controlling. But if you both have principles in that relationship, like myself, I have my own principles that I've put in place in my relationship that you talk about communication. If there is something that I don't understand or that I need to really understand, or something that I'm not happy about, it's easy for me to communicate with someone. Even my children, they'll tell you that you've hurt me. They'll come to me and say, Mommy, you've hurt me, because I've taught them to express how they are feeling. And then I have to ask, how did I hurt you? And then they explain that you did this. And then I find myself sitting there apologizing. And then I'm like, okay. Yeah, so my daughter, the one who is 6, you hear them arguing with their sister, and you hear her explaining that my sister hurt me, and her sister will apologize, or she'll hurt her sister, and then she'll apologize. I think it is good to actually communicate and listen. You spoke about listening. You need to listen, and then you need to hear, because sometimes we listen but we don't want to hear what is being said. Listen to somebody and hear it when they're saying it. Give your time to actually hear it. And if there's some things that needs to be changed, change it. So that's
Mm,
how I've changed my life. My habit is to listen, to hear, and to analyze the situation. I have to actually use my psychology to analyze the situation. When the fight is being presented to me, I have to be the one that basically look at the situation, and if I need to apologize straight away, I
mm,
have to actually do it straight away and say, baby, I'm sorry. I will just go and do it, or I will go and correct whatever needs to be done. And at the same time, if somebody has wronged you, it's very, very important. You know, forgiveness is a big thing. People, you know, arguments starts the day you go on dates, the restaurant you choose. Somebody chooses a restaurant, they choose the wrong restaurant, you hold them captivity for that. Sometimes they do something that you don't like, or how they hold the forks, or how they do this. It's the small things that destroys marriages. But instead of looking at ourselves and somebody in that relationship as individual, not they need to behave like us, or if they've done us wrong, we need to learn to forgive. Because if you don't forgive, and forgiveness and gratefulness is the biggest thing, and also you valuing yourself, the three things you have to
mm,
value yourself: forgiveness, and you have to be grateful. Valuing yourself, it means you know who you are in that marriage, in that relationship, and you know your part. Knowing your roles in that relationship as well is very, very important. Instead of
mm,
biking about who's taking the rubbish bin out, who is doing this, who is doing this. If you know your role in the relationship and you have children as well, give children some jobs to do in the relationship. There's some things, like sometimes you find that you have to plan for this for children, you have to plan for this. Let them plan it. Give them permission to say, plan it, help me to do this.
mm,
Plan your play dates and I'll approve them. Plan this and I will approve it. Like myself, I, with my daughter, they're doing acting. I approve that. Yes, they can do the acting. I speak to them. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this on this TV series? They say yes. And then when I get the address, my daughter will sit there. She would get the directions. This is where we need to go. I have the direction. You have to, every relationship that you have with the children, with your spouse, somebody has to do their bit. Because if you are somebody that says, okay, I can do everything for everyone, by the time you finish, you are exhausted, you don't have time to do anything. Give everybody to do everything. There are some things that my spouse does shopping. He is not allowed to do food shopping because he spends too much money. When he goes food shopping, he comes home with the gadgets. He's not allowed to go shopping. That one is a no, no, no. If we want the extra £100 to be spent every week, send him for shopping. So he's not allowed. He can look at the
mm,
house and help out and do shopping on Amazon, things regarding the house. He knows in this, everybody knows in this house they've got to do their bit.
mm,
There's no one controlling this. There's no one controlling this. When I'm going out and taking my daughter, she on the phone with the Google app. She is busy saying, we need to go this, we need to go this, we need to go this. Like where we were going, it was really far. We had to take a taxi. And the driver actually got lost. And my daughter goes, no, I know where we're going, because that's her job. When the taxi driver is looking at her, she goes, no, we need to go this way. So she kept straight directing him, no, turn right, turn left, turn right. And the driver was just doing this, doing the work. And in the end, we got where we need to go. So that's what relationship is about. Even when you want to take that gap year, you talk about boundaries. There's got to be boundaries. Why you are taking that gap year, and the goals. Write down the goals. If you know me, I'm a Christian. There is no gap year. When I enter a relationship, there is no gap year. I have to work on that relationship, and I have to pray to God to open the eyes of the person that I'm in a relationship with. Before, my relationship just used to break because I didn't know how to pray, and I didn't know how to ask, because the Bible says, ask anything you ask in my name, it will be given to you. I didn't know how to ask for God's assistance. So over to you, Carol Ann.
Yeah, I think that's a key one, isn't it? Actually knowing how to ask for God's assistance. But again, what you're saying about a goal, and I think it is important to know that you're on the same page for having a gap year and what is the goal around it, but again, it also comes into when you get married. Do you have a goal? Do you have an idea of what this partnership, this relationship is going to be? So again, that all comes into the guidance principles, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that the fact that the goals can change, but also realizing that it's not about constantly looking to the future. We were always looking to the future and planning, well, when we get this pot of money and when we get this pot of money, because there were certain times when my husband would get an extra bit of money coming in, and we would plan to spend that a year before we got it, and so we're living to that. And when it actually came round, it was like, it didn't actually happen that way. And then we were also planning for his retirement. Well, I mean, how many years ahead is that? And of course, we never actually got there because we parted company before then, albeit it was probably about 5 years before he actually retired, but from the job he was in, because they could retire at 30 years service. But, we knew he was going to get this amazing lump sum, so we were constantly planning for it. Well, you need to be careful that you're not living in the future. You need to be in the present. Have your goals and some dreams, but put them away, put them aside, and be here in the moment. What have you got here right now? Have you got your health? Have you got some money? Have you got a roof over your head? What can you talk about? What can you do? And again, getting to know who you are, what is it you want to do with your life? And does that tie in with what the other person wants to do? But something else you said about apologizing as well. And it is being gracious enough to apologize when you know that something hasn't gone right. You've made a mistake, or that maybe it shouldn't have been like that. To be actually go, okay, and apologize for that is an amazing thing to be able to do, because that helps move things forward rather than holding on to that, indignation and hurt, but it's also recognizing that if you haven't got these ground rules for the gap year, a separation can create more distance between a couple. And if you're not working on yourselves and you haven't set these ground rules, it can just pull you apart. So again, it comes down to the basics. Well, what is it you want from this? What is the reason for having it? What did you get married for in the first place? Has that actually, what you got married for, has that run its course? Because if it has, then is there another reason you could be together? So again, it's exploring the relationship, and constantly upgrading it, updating it. And it is a constant conversation, all the time. And it's something that it needs to be in those guiding principles because it's something that I certainly wasn't aware of before. We just seem to like this lurch from one thing to another, not really knowing what we're doing. And I think that's also something in there. It's okay not to know what you're doing, but it's working with that, not knowing what you're doing and being able to move forward with it. So how can you work with something you don't know about? What do you think, Nomsa?
You don't know anything about, you could actually, it's like with a business. When we start a business, is the unknown. The path is the unknown. So when you work with something that you don't know, you just have to pray to God that He's on your side, because that is the only way for me, basically, to use my own beliefs. That when I'm doing something, I I work with God, and I know there's something that I started doing. Um, I know everyone says you have to visualize. I stopped visualizing now. Uh, I think for a few months now, I stopped visualizing. I just let His way be His way. I say, God, this is my needs. This is my desire. I make a decision. And when I pray about it, there's one thing that I always pray, that show me who I am, show me my path. If the path is a distraction, take it away. I don't want it. Even with the speakers at Nkosi talk shows, I say, God, any speaker that is a distraction to Nkosi talk show, let me have 2 speakers, 3 speakers, 4 speakers that are real. I just pray to God, because that is the only way to work with the unknown. We may think that we are walking alone, we are working with the unknown, but somebody else knows that path that we are taking. If we just trust, if the gap here is this what you want, and then you just trust that it's going to work out the way I want, and believe it, and just hand it over to your beliefs. I don't know, those beliefs might be universe or God. For me, God is bigger than me. God is bigger than, even when I read the Bible, I have to visualize and like see that there is no one bigger than Him. And I know that if I don't succeed in whatever I'm doing, I know that His way is not mine. And I'm trying to move out of the house. Next Monday, we're meant to exchange the house, but everything is just falling apart. And when I speak to this one who is dealing the letting agency, everyone is hitting me with the law. This is what is happening. Everyone is hitting me with the law. But guess what? When it comes to marriage, there are laws and there are rules and laws about marriage, that you can get that, you can get that when you divorce. When you are married, forget about what you can get. Just think about, if things are not going well, think about God being on your side, working on your side. If it's the gap here that you need, you have to pray about it, or you have to meditate. If you are a non-religious person, you have to use your beliefs, because for you to get to where you need to go, you got to have something. Empty, it doesn't cut it. It's divorce. You have to have some sort of beliefs, Kero, and that I believe it's like you have your grandchildren, and for your grandchildren to actually come and say, Nanny, I've done this, I've done this, it comes from you as a grandmother that wishes them well, that I wish my grandchildren can be this. And their parents, they're like, wish their children can be this, and they meditate about it. And then that comes to pass. Marriage is like that. you have to basically, you have to give your energy, give it all. Give it all. If you have this person that goes to their friends, oh, what is he done now? What is she done now? When you are having problems, the minute you realize you have a problem, you pray, use your beliefs, you meditate, you bring that energy, bring that good energy to you and say, this is not the marriage that I want. I want a good marriage. And I want with this person, if somebody is not abusive and they don't know how to, there are some people when they enter a relationship, because they want to enter a relationship, marriage, but they don't know what marriage is about. That's why I'm saying you've got to know what marriage is first. What is marriage? Is it about getting married, dressing up, inviting 700 guests and dancing with them, and then they leave you with a big bill? My sister-in-law got married on Saturday. The marriage was very, very small. I think she had less than 100 people, both in the evening and in the morning, in the afternoon. But what was so beautiful about the wedding was it was very intimacy. There was intimacy with the guest, with everybody there. People were very, very, they were having fun and very close. It wasn't like a packed, and you could see that these people made a decision to get married because that's what they want, not to get married to bring everybody to show that we are getting married. No, it was about the decision that they made, that we want to get married. We cannot afford to bring people that we don't know. So marriage requires to work with the unknown. It requires hard work. You were married for how long, Carol Ann?
Almost 24 years.
Oh, yeah, okay. If I come and sit down with you, you are the person that can tell me the stories about what marriage is, what the things that I don't know about marriage. Because if you ask somebody who has been married for a long time, whether the marriage worked or it didn't work, they will tell you the mistakes that we make as a younger generation. They will tell you the things that we do that destroys marriages. They will give you advice on how to correct those mistakes because they've done it all.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is actually getting over the expectation that a marriage or your life together has to be perfect. You know, if you have this expectation, it's got to be perfect, then that's the first hurdle that you're going to come crashing down on, you know, that you'll never get over. You have to let that go and recognize things will come in, you know, unexpected interruptions, you know, like I just had loud voices out here. That's why I turn my sound off and they know. I was just praying to the Lord and just going, it's okay. They're here for a reason. And just, you know, what you had to say, Nomsa, was what was meant to be heard. And now they've gone. But it's how you deal with it. In the beginning, I was like, angry, you know, go away, don't you know, I'm here recording, you know, I'm making so much noise. But then just let it go and be peaceful with it. It wasn't perfect, but it doesn't matter. So it is recognizing that something is perfect within its imperfection and just letting yourself breathe with it. And so there's a lot that I learned in my marriage, and I've learned a lot since doing all of this work on myself as well, because all of this finding myself and personal development work has gone on since I got divorced, you know, or since we separated. But I'd started some of it a little bit before. And sometimes I think some people are scared to start a journey of self-discovery or personal development because very often it does lead to separating. But actually, I know couples where it's brought them closer together. They've almost, but they've worked on it and they've done their work on themselves together. They've worked together and then they're even stronger because of it. And I often wonder if, we'd done more personally, went to work and stayed together, what might have been. But it's like, I have to let go of that, because what might have been is whatever might have been. What is what happened. And I've learned, from that, and can move forward from it. So it's 22 years ago. It's almost I've been divorced and separated from my ex-husband as we were together, because we were together 2 years before we actually got married. Because I was at college at the time, and he promised my parents that we would wait until I'd finished college before we got married. So yeah, I literally finished college, and then finished college in the August we got married.
Awesome.
So I was only 21 at the time. And when I look back, I remember how I'm thinking how young I was, but I didn't feel that way at the time, So yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing how basically life works. And like you say, you got married very, very young, and your ex-husband had to wait for you to finish college. And sometimes when people get married when they're young, because is basically when you get married when you are young, the relationship either end up in divorce or end up in a long term. I think that's why you guys went on 22 something. And I'm sure if you knew about personal development, I think maybe you guys, you still in that relationship as well. Or maybe the problem is if you are into personal development and the other person they are not, it will not work. But I can guarantee you, if I sit down with you, you give me some points, the things that you've learned in that relationship, and the things that you wish you knew, that you would have saved your relationship, or maybe before even getting married with your husband, you'll be able to give me some good points. Basically, if I want to some advice with my matchmaking, basically, I'm a nose packer. I ask those who have been married for a long time, because they have a story to tell me. They always have a story to tell me that I have to learn from them, because I just feel that with us younger stars, young stars, we feel that there's a ready-made marriage, like a takeaway. You buy your takeaway, and when you don't like it, you're like, I'm out. I'm going to another restaurant to buy it another takeaway. But marriage requires a hard work. A really
Commitment. I think the word is commitment.
Commitment. And also you have to be aware of who you are. Self-awareness is very, very, very important. Allowing yourself to be you in that relationship. And that was the one thing when I met Martin. I remember when I started personal development and started psychology, and I was like, I need to stop hiding the real me, and I'm just going to be me. But consciously, I had made a decision that I'm tired of living a fake life. So I remember him looking at me saying, Nomsa, you are not fake, are you? You're just you. And I was like, yes, I'm just me. And I was like, I'm just me. Basically, I was like, I'm tired of hiding my feelings, and I'm tired of not being grateful of my life or being here, because when you don't appreciate you, that means you don't appreciate being on earth. So I was like, I'm tired of that. I need to be grateful of who I am.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this gap year, I hope people will learn something out of it, because it does help. to other people, but you got to have principles in place. You have, I don't know what I was going to ask. Did this person in that 1 year, did they meet up with that person, or the rules were, the principles were not to meet up? Did they ever meet up, or what was the principles?
They were in communication through
Oh,
that time.
okay,
Yeah, yeah,
okay. Oh, that's good.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
A lot shifted, but they both worked on each other, themselves, and but they realized that, there was that realization that the other person brought something to the relationship that nobody else could, that actually
okay,
brought something to their life. And when she realized that, it was like, yes. And she also realized that she didn't want to be with anybody else. There was a commitment to making it work by both of them.
okay.
And I think that underpins it. That has to be the foundation. Um, that has to be there. But you have to come to realize that, because maybe you've lost sight of that even.
Yeah.
It's like that can sort of get lost in the melee of everything else that goes on and what life throws at you. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
getting
so
back to
true.
that. Yeah. That point. So yeah, discuss, have the conversation. If you feel that it is something that could work for you, then go for it, But again, it's having those discussions about it. And it all comes down to communication. And maybe you could then build up your own marriage guidelines, that you could share with somebody else and help them. Because again, it's about supporting other people through this, because there is no rule book. There is no rule book. I think
That's so
that's the
true.
key. It's not set in stone. It has to be this way. It's what you make of it and what you want out of it. And have fun. And, I go back to have fun, enjoyment. If you're not happy, then explore, well, why am I not happy? What can I do that would make me happy? That would make, because if I make me happy, and it can make the others happy. It's not always about making other people happy.
Yeah.
You have to be happy yourself. So it's a two-way thing.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thank you so much, Carol Ann, and
you're
everyone who
welcome.
is watching today. It's been a great topic. It would have been
Mm,
lovely to hear Johnny's point of view as a man. Hopefully, one day he will join us.
yeah.
And if you're watching this talk shows, please share some love with your loved ones. Press some heart button and share some love with your loved ones. And go to our page and get in touch with us. And we're here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. UK time. And God bless you and live with grace. Anything you want to leave with our audience, Carol Ann, words of encouragement before we go?
Um, I think it is that just stop, breathe, be in the moment. And I just want to go, yes, have fun. What's coming up? Just go and grab life. Go and grab the experience. Have it, make an adventure out of it and enjoy the exploration. Yeah, that's it. That's what comes to mind.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And live with grace, everyone, and God bless you.
God bless.
Okay. How do I stop this?